just going through strings once again and seeing the parameters that we just saw quickly. So here we have a name which is Rahul Tiwari, and and we also said you can access any of the elements. So the space, the fifth element is a space. Okay, so a string is defined in double quotes, or it can also be defined in single quotes like this, right? You can also define it in single quotes, which means I can define it with just a single quote, and still if you would see the type of name, it would say it's a class string. So a string can be defined in double quotes or single quotes, but what is preferable? Okay, so what is preferable? Let's say if I want to say a string like this, let me just say a string, I don't feel like doing my homework. Okay, now if you had put a single quote, okay, it would say invalid syntax. Why? Because your single quote, whenever it gets over, there's a single quote in your string. Whenever there's a single quote in your string, this string gets completed here itself, and all this seems like, oh, whatever, it feels like you have defined something wrong. So if you're using a single quote, then if you're using a single quote for defining a string like this, and in your string if there is another single quote, you need to use an escape character to say that this single quote is a part of the string and not a definition for string control. Now when I say yeah, and when I say that I don't feel like doing my homework, it's right. Okay, but if you had defined the string in double quotes itself in the first place, that means somewhere like this, and over here a double quote here, so then you wouldn't have to put this there, that because that single quote is not considered as a mistake in double quotes. So you have S here, I don't feel like doing my homework. Hope you got that point, right? So we have a string which can be defined in single quotes or double quotes, preferably double quotes, or you can also have a multi-line string. Let's say this is your multi-line string which says multi-line str is equal to hi. Oops, it has to be defined. If you're defining a multi-line string, you have to define it with a triple quote. Hi, this is a multi-line string, right? Cool. Enter. And if you say multi-line str, oops, hi \n, this is a multi-line string \n, cool. Hope you understand that, how you can define a string. Okay, now coming to the point, if you have defined a string, now the point comes is, what if I can manipulate this particular string according to my, can I use some functions? As I told you, whenever you create an object, you create a reference to an object of a particular class, which means I can use methods to access methods of that class to operate on this particular name. So now I have the name, and the name is Michael Jackson. I can use a few functions, write a dot, using a dot operator. You can see there are many options, or there are many functions that you can use along with a string. So let's just look at a few things that you can do along with the string for now. Let's say name.count, and let's say enter. What does it say? It takes at least one argument. 0 is given, which means we haven't said the right thing. Alt P. Now in count, what does it require in count? Can you say? It says sub subject. Okay, so name.count, let me say something like this. I'll just say J. That means there is one J in your name. It counts the number of times your J appears in your particular string. So if I say name.count a small c, it appears 2 times, Michael, and over here this Jackson. So you have C appearing 2 times. But if you have something like Delhi, to say 0. Okay, so count tells you the number of times it appears. Let's use some other method. Okay, we write name dot. Okay, capitalize. What does capitalize do? Okay, before I do capitalize, let me do something else. Let me just do find. And what does find say? Again, it is telling me to give something like, okay, name dot find. So it tells me where this particular j is. 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. This is your 8th index. So you can find a substring within a string. Okay, but what if it is not there? What if it's not there? Say for example d is not there. Name dot find d, it will return for you a -1 because d does not exist in the string. Hope you understand that. Few methods that you can use. Okay, let me now define a name which is just Frank. Okay, so it's going to be a string. I need to define it in single quote or double quote. So this is my name. Now if I say name dot capitalize, you can directly do a control space and it'll give for you capitalize, and then I say enter. Can you see the name dot capitalizes for you the f, but of course it is not saving it anywhere. It just throws it to you. That is why the name the f is still small. You haven't saved it back or you haven't stored it. Now coming over to some other function, name dot, but it's only for the first letter, right? So what is case for center? If I say center and you just need to say width, that means how many letters do you want? Let's say if I say 15, then Frank will come at the center with spaces on both ends such that it forms 15-letter word, right? Of course the name is Frank itself because we haven't saved it back. Name dot, if I say, you know, casefold says, okay, so if I do this, okay, it returns for you the same thing for now, because the casefold returns for you, it is done in such a way though so that if you have to do a case insensitive matching, okay, so that means if you want to match this particular string, you want to use this string to compare it with another string without considering the case, you use this particular instruction dot casefold. Okay, now coming on to some other function, control space, and if I say, let me do something like, okay, is it alpha num? Let's say it says true. Yes, it is alphanumeric. Okay, so that means if I have somewhere in my s, that's my string, if I have something like this, right, and if I say s dot is alphanumeric, it will say false. Why? Because I have some special characters in that. So that is used for detecting special characters in it. All right, let's say, but if I have to say something else, let's say is decimal, of course it will say false. And if I say, all right, if I say is lower, it will say true because it is lowercase, right? So that's it. And of course, if there is some other function that we can just go through, you can just practice them out as we go ahead, as we start doing. All right, okay, okay, dot upper. What does dot upper do? It converts all the smaller letters to upper. So capitalizes only the first letter. Dot upper capitalizes all the letters. So you'll have s dot upper, and of course you have an s dot lower. Everything is brought back to low. Yes, now you have s dot, let's say format map. Okay, all right, so if I say something like this, if I say s dot split, and I need to say somewhere like this, can you see that it split this string for me, and it took the splitting point. I gave the splitting point as this particular letter, that is exclamation. So to the left of exclamation and to the right of exclamation, both of them, they have been separated as two different strings, and they are given to you back as a list. Okay, so what exactly is a list? We'll come to that in some time. Okay, so this is where we can use the strings. Of course, you can, if you want to find out the length of the string, you can use something like length of s. Okay, so that will give you the string length. And with this, we have understood strings, its methods, how to use them, and now we go on to some other data structures of Python, which I can say list, tuples, and so on.